Good morning.
Hello. How you guys doing?
Morning.
Pretty good, pretty good. Can't complain. Hello to everybody watching.
Hello to all of our viewers. All right, today, as per usual, we are going to be reviewing a handful of questions from the Pioneer Tournament and some bonus projects that are not in the tournament. I think, as usual, we can get right into it.
Let's go.
We can start with the first project.
Just to make sure that it's coming
Andrew.
across cleanly. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
All right.
So for these guys, we have a landing page. This is from Lauren, who is in California. Their question is, so we can take a look at their landing page real quick, and then they would like us to review their deck. It's a separate link in that sheet, Andrew, to quickly peruse their deck, but we can start here.
Sure. All right. So looks like the request is to take a look at that deck. Got it. I can't select the sheet to paste it. 1 second. To make sure I'm on the right account. So in the meantime, before I can pick the deck, let me just look at this landing page real quickly.
Send that on chat too.
Thank you. Down payment registry campaigns. All right. I see. Okay, so it's a gift registry. Instead of when you get married or have a baby, it's for when you buy a house. That's my quick understanding of what's going on here. So Lauren's request is for us to take a look at the deck and see if it makes sense. Is the business model clear? Who are they selling to? And is it easy to understand? So let's go and take a look. GoFundMe meets Credit Karma. Home buyers raise money for a down payment and sell SaaS tools to consumer direct mortgage lenders to get purchase clients for them. Okay, the one-liner, I think I understand. It's not as clear to me as I think the landing page was. I don't know if I'm just having a hard time parsing the second part of it, which is purchase clients, or if that's just a me problem. What do other people think about this one-liner?
There's certainly a lot of words here. I think there could be less words. I imagine it seems to me what this is. It's not necessarily. I view it. I guess I understand it a little bit less as a wedding registry and more as just crowdfunding with friends for your home down payment. So I guess you can have your family help you out, like do the down payment on your home. Anyway, but back to the deck. If people want feedback on the deck, definitely you could probably simplify that. And you can probably just, if you took that entire sentence and you just slashed it after the word "and," I think it'd be great. Help home buyers raise money for a down payment.
Yep, that to me, I would agree is the clearest explanation of what's going on here. The second part isn't immediately clear, but maybe you'll flesh that out later on in the deck. All right, so the end user problem, saving for a down payment is hard. You got to put 20% down on a home, and it's a barrier to entry for a lot of people who don't have liquid cash to put down. Makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, nice GIF. I can't remember the last time I've seen a GIF reference in deck. Gotta say, it's been a while. Mortgage originators line real estate agents for referrals. This part also is to me a little confusing in how it follows from the end user problem. Because when I think of end user, I usually think customer, but it sounds like from here, your customer is someone different. It's not like the people that are crowdfunding, it's mortgage originators. So yeah, here it's still not immediately clear to me how this connects. See if it becomes clearer. Okay, so I think I'm kind of getting there. So on the for the people who are buying homes, you provide like a GoFundMe experience for them to crowdfund their down payment. On the mortgage originator side, you're giving them software of some sort that helps them, I guess, from a leads perspective. Um, yeah, it's kind of getting there, but I'm still a little bit confused. I don't know if Daniel, you have a better understanding of what's going on here.
It seems like an really interesting idea. Yeah, it does seem like the stack is really colorful. I think you could probably simplify a lot of it, and you can keep some of the color and make it even better. You know, probably the opening line can just be, crowdsourced down payments for homes or something, and then the pain point I think can literally be just a sentence, or a GIF in a sentence. But to Andrew's point earlier, I don't really think you need to involve realtors in the pain point. Obviously, the pain point I imagine is consumers not having enough money for the down payment. Solution seems great. I don't know that you need all sorts of giveaways. I think the product on its own can probably stand on its own merit, but obviously I don't understand the market that much, so maybe that somehow is relevant. Was there another slide after this? Lenders of subscription?
It's the two-sided business model that I think I'm a little bit like. The first part, like what Daniel said, I completely understand. Like you have a hard time saving for a down payment, so getting money to pay for your down payment makes a ton of sense. I think to this point, it hasn't been clear what exactly is the software that you're selling to lenders that completes the other side of the business model. And I think it would have maybe helped if this is like a critical part of the business, to explain that a little bit more upfront. I think whatever, maybe it was the language or something else, but it's still not clear to me like the pain point / software that is on the lender side or how that plays into this.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think the good news is, I think if you only did half this company, you'd at least get validation. Maybe this is not what will take you to, the cover of Forbes magazine, but you'd at least get a sense if it's working if you just literally did the first half of it. I'll be honest, I don't know the latest in the zero down world, and my understanding was, depending on how excited the market is, down payments have actually gotten extremely small. Now that might change if the BOE changes rates or whatnot, but I would just focus on that, make a deck just literally based on that, shared down payments for homes. I do think there were people doing this with kind of co-living stuff earlier, and so maybe this is just a variant of that. Anyway, that alone could work, and the back part of the company, I think you could figure out later. Now, you might say you're more excited about the second part of the marketplace, to which I'd say probably figure that out first. Sometimes with marketplaces, I do think you have to you have a chicken and egg, and you have to figure out both at once with like an eBay or an Airbnb. But in this type of product, I think there's actually two different things that have, I hate to use the word, but have a synergy between them. And so you can probably just stage it and do one at a time, because you can certainly see that we are a little bit confused, and investors might be too. Honestly, employees might be too. And so it's helpful to, focus. The other small thing I'd mention that's kind of obvious, I think, is there's a lot of numbers on this slide in a small font. And that is in general not a great thing to have in a deck. So.
Yeah, agree with that completely. Like just half the business, like whichever half it is that you want to start with, could be a standalone business, I think is the main takeaway here. And doing both things at once can be pretty difficult. So I think it's more of a question for you, Lauren, which kind of wedge you think is better, whether it makes sense to focus on the home buyer portion first, or maybe it's the software portion. But each of those, I feel like, could be its own tagline, and you can kind of expand into the other side of the marketplace later on when necessary. But I do feel like each of these is a business based on my current understanding of what you're trying to offer each of these players. And there are ways of providing a business model on the home buyer side. It doesn't necessarily need to be like a 0% fee model.
Yep.
So
we should breeze through the rest of this.
Yeah, breeze go through. So yeah, shared equity, rent to own, funding stuff like crowdfunding. Okay. This also is a business in and of itself. Like all cash down payments. There's a company in NYC that did this like about 2 years ago. So there's a few moving pieces here that I think are really interesting potential like businesses. It sounds like there's a combination of those things going on here. Yeah, just breezing through it's not clear to me I guess the wedding portion is where you want to start with people that are getting married who expect to buy homes soon. Okay. Yeah, I guess to summarize for your seat, I think clarifying like the one-liner, making it clear to better explaining the part of the business that you're focusing on. If you want to do the crowdfunding for the home buyers versus the mortgage origination from the lender side. And the last question I want to answer to be complete is you asked if the API opportunity makes sense on slide 8. It basically sounds like you're selling like access to people that are trying to make down payments to lenders, whether that's via API or lead generation. I think either of those would make sense to me. Okay.
Yeah, query eligible funds. All of these, I think, are interesting businesses independently. I actually think, yeah, to your point, doing them together makes everything less interesting.
All right, with that, let's move on to the next one, which is, I think, join Presage, which their summary is a blogging platform that rewards your top fans and lets you stay in control. And Kevin from California would like feedback on what is the clarity of the landing page and what's the growth strategy for users already locked into traditional products, which in their case is Medium or Substack. Great questions. So let's go ahead and take a look. First thing, I think the Medium alternative kind of paints the picture of a pretty clear idea of what you guys are doing, just providing space for writers to create content and get paid for it. I guess the question that I would have from reading this is like, what about Medium doesn't allow the writers to stay in control? And maybe someone that's been on Medium as a writer would better answer that question. But I guess for me, who may not be the target customer, it's not immediately clear to me what it means to have more control over my content. Because there's a lot of loaded stuff that comes with the word control, like how you monetize it, how you market it, how you brand it, all that sort of stuff. Okay, if I were to summarize my take on this, I understand the business that you're building. The differentiation point is still not the clearest to me. What do you think, Daniel?
Yeah, nice design. What do you think of the aesthetic overall?
The aesthetic is great.
Yeah.
I like the color palette is pretty minimalistic. It focuses on content as opposed to visual, which I think is probably consistent with the space that they're in. It's very clean. It's easy to read. Yeah, I'm a fan of the design for sure.
There's a mismatch, I think, of incentives on Medium that maybe this product can address, which is I think Medium's designers very much want a kind of a conformity, and Medium writers want independence. And so, you know, I do think some of my friends who are Substack and Medium writers don't like how uniform everything looks. and would actually like an independent design, there's an immediate discount you have, I think, in your mind when you load a Medium page or a Substack page, because they all look like each other. And you tend to have a bleeding effect of like, if you read a couple of Substacks that are bleeding a particular way, I think just everything else gets bucketed in that range. And so I don't know what the actual controls that are given here, but to the extent that you allow independent skinning and designing, I think that would work quite well. Tumblr and WordPress show, I think, that the people really value that stuff. MySpace, same. So I think that feature alone would be pretty strong. And I think Ghost will probably provide some outlet to this, but maybe you can do even more.
I guess we're already kind of entering the realm of the second question, which is what is the growth strategy for users of really locked nutritional products? And Daniel mentioned personalization as being one of the main drivers there. Where I do remember, like, what was the name of the other company that was where other people Subtle? Was that the name of it? Where you hovered your mouse over a circle and the circle would expand and give props or something? Do you guys? I don't know if you guys remember this.
Justin Curtis's website, yeah.
This one, right?
Yeah.
Yes, this is the one that I remember. I just remember that every blogger or writer had that kind of same kind of interface with only really customizable things like the color of the circle at the bottom of the page. But other than that, it was like relatively like the design and an experience is pretty much the same across all the different writers. So yeah, personalization would make sense. What I would do is I don't know the answer to this, although I have some guesses, is just talking to the user, to like writers that are on Medium or Substack today. I'm guessing that if I were to think from just a general creator's perspective, what do they care about? They care about making money and finding new consumers, like people that are going to consume their content. That's kind of like whether you're a TikTok creator or you're a Twitch streamer or you're a YouTuber, those are kind of the top two problems that anybody has, like discoverability and monetization. So if you can make the case, which it seems like you're trying to touch on the bottom, is you're making more revenue and you're getting more retention and you're getting more growth, then I think that's definitely the most interesting piece to a writer on another platform right now. So I guess explaining why all this sort of stuff works would be, if I'm putting myself in that person's shoes, would be the most interesting thing. Is that the first thing you tell me is that you're going to make more money and you're going to have more people reading your stuff, then I'd be interested in talking or checking out your platform.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've talked a decent amount about this one. Let's move on to the next one, which is Zorby. And this is Sukans from New Zealand. And the question that he has is, what advice do you have for oceanic companies looking to raise rounds with US investors? And if there's time, is there specific advice on what points you would want validated before investing in a B2C edtech product like Zorby, like traction levels to aim for example?
I think on this one, I meant to edit. I think we could focus on actually the second question. We can do the first one as well, but the second one is, I think, the more general, interesting one.
I mean, there are some things oceanic companies I think need to be on the lookout for. For example, Andrew. I'm kidding. I don't think there are any things.
Yes, that was my answer. The blank look on my face and like lack of response was consistent.
I don't think there are many things. I do think it's helpful to be domiciled in the US. That's the one non-exciting answer I have. But beyond that, I mean, maybe good internet speed. I think that's kind of it. What was the second question?
Validate. So things that you look for in a B2C edtech company, traction levels to aim for example. I guess lastly, I can also take the stab at this question, having started a B2C edtech company. So I remember when I was fundraising, it was a little bit different, I guess, for me, because my company was extremely niche. It focused on chess education, which I think is probably if you're going to slice down edtech into like an even smaller slice, like you kind of get there at the end of the road. We had like pretty strong traction numbers. On consumer traction, we had, I think at the time we were raising, we had like 80K monthly active users, pretty decent growth. I think we're growing like, I don't know, like 10, 15% month over month. But the issue with us was definitely monetization and market size. The issue with any sort of ed tech company, at least in the Western hemisphere, in my experience, compared to places like China, is willingness to pay. Whether it's a cultural difference or a societal difference. People in Asia are just much more willing to pay, especially on the parent side, for their kids' education compared to the places like the US, where if you're trying to like sell to schools, as companies like Class Dojo and Remind have experienced, it's a huge pain. It took them, I don't know if a decade is probably a little bit less than a decade. It took them a really long time before they started seeing like revenue, even after having great growth numbers and usage numbers. And the reason why is that it's a lot of red tape and hoops to jump through in order to monetize any sort of like school system. And I don't know if it's the same case in New Zealand or if New Zealand has a similar kind of cultural or societal like vibe compared to the US when it comes to education. But that to me was like the main thing where all the investors that I talked to cared about was like, well, yeah, how are you going to monetize this? Like, have you people demonstrated that they're willing to pay? And for us, it's kind of a double whammy because it's not just education, it's chess education, which is an even smaller market to go after. But I think that that would be the main thing that you're going to run into if you're going to be pitching mainly US based investors in ed tech products. Is even if you have pretty great growth numbers, it's like, well, have parents or school systems or whatever kind of shown that they're willing to pay. And after several years of like talking to ed tech companies, I do think for most businesses, it's gonna come from the parents, if I had to guess, because I don't really see that much changing in like the public school systems when it comes to paying for software products, at least in the near future. So that's my take on it.
Andrew, do you think COVID has changed anything just in terms of how schooling is organized um, and then subsequently, you know, how money might flow in the education world?
I do. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's going to affect the same core problem, which is the public school systems get willingness to pay for software products. I think that there's going to be a lot of inertia there, mainly for like systemic reasons, like taxpayer dollars or the amount of bureaucracy that goes on there. However, I do think it has changed the way that people interact with educational content. And I do think there's room there, but the money, if anything, how I would summarize it is that individuals and parents are going to be more willing to pay for a better education because of COVID. And I do think there's an opportunity there for remote learning and like better content, but I don't know if that of the businesses that are going into those categories are going to find their money through K-12 schools. If anything, it'd be higher education or something else. So yeah, that's my little rant on this topic. If anyone else has anything else to add here.
Very interesting. So interesting how the that's a new kind of design thing going on now. You see those 3D I don't know what you want to call them, those 3D people at the bottom. They kind of look like, I feel like there's a lot of that now.
I have not seen this. So I've been seeing, this is a complete tangent and we should move on, but have you seen the humans ones? There's like, I saw all these little faceless, like designed people on countless websites.
Yeah, that's an Airtable one. I think they started that.
Yeah, I don't know how many like random landing pages I've seen have these, but these I haven't seen. So it's fresh. But I guess if you're seeing a few of them now, it's cool too. Anyway, moving on. I think we answered the question that Scon's had. Shipper is next, and it's Yash. Yash from India asks, I'd like to get feedback on the project idea. There were a no-code builder for developers that lets you build apps using a GUI and lets you export the code. I feel like I've seen this tagline on probably at least 4 sites. The world's most powerful no-code development tool. GUI builder plugins, deploy anywhere. Okay, cool. So the good news is that I can pattern match pretty quickly and understand what you guys are doing, because it seems like there's several companies in this space that are trying to do similar things. Bubble comes to mind. There's, I guess the thing with these no code, like low code, no code software like development platforms is I would like to see some sort of specialization. And the reason why I say that is because it just becomes really hard. If I were to put myself in the shoes of like a person looking at Shipper versus Bubble versus something like Webflow, I feel like I'm coming to you with a goal in mind, right? I'm trying to build something. What that something is can vary. It could be a landing page. It could be an internal tool. It could be like I'm trying to turn a script into a web app. It could be like any one of these things. And there is an element of specialization when I think about the bigger companies today. So like Webflow, for example, I think landing page, like build a really easy, quick landing page. For something like Retool, I think of, oh, I'm trying to build an internal tool. For Bubble, I'm thinking like mostly like you're an entrepreneur that's trying, like a non-technical entrepreneur that's trying to build like an MVP of their app. And I do like kind of match each of these companies with their own respective niches. And I think the reason why the companies position them as such is because it is kind of hard to target a more general population. I think that's something that you can go down the road, but it's hard to start with that, because then you get a bunch of people coming to your site that are potentially unsure if what you're building is the right thing for them. But more importantly, it kind of lets you focus on a population of people that you know what to build for, rather than worrying about building something for different groups of people, which might honestly be different sets of features. So that's kind of the reason why I like starting with a more specific problem for a specific demographic. And I do think that is something that would help this landing page stand out well.
I think that is totally true. I think if you can think of software solely with low code, almost becomes like media, movies, whatever. The guys who verticalize in a strong go-to-market motion win over the generalists, because the competency shifts basically in terms of what you need. If you are doing something super scarce, like you're the only person in the world that can make 3-nanometer chips, everyone will come to you. But if everyone can start a no-code thing, the Salesforce matters much more, and specialization matters much more.
If I were to make a suggestion before we move on, it's the way you summarize it, and at least in the text when you ask the question, is you said for developers, no code for developers, and it doesn't immediately shine through, I think, on the landing page here. Maybe the import code port part, or maybe the deploy anywhere part. But I think highlighting like the problems that developers have when they decide to go no code route versus coding it themselves would help here. I think Retool actually did a pretty good job here, because Retool really is still a product where you need developers, because whether you're interacting with an internal API or you're building something for an ops team or whatever, what Retool did is it made it the calculation easier for a developer to say, should I homegrow this myself, or should I just use an external tool to build it? And they made that decision easier for them by saying, hey, you can use us, you can still be a developer. It would just be easy for you to use us to solve this problem. And I think you can take a similar approach where if a developer is coming to you with a problem, like asking themselves, like, should I code this, or should I use a no-code builder to do this? And you want to say you should use us to build it, then coming up with a specific use case or the set of features that developers care about will help differentiate you a little bit more. I honestly think you can even further verticalize, but that's a starting point, at least starting with developers as a target customer. So, all right, we are moving on to Laska from Genki Saka, so from Japan. Thanks for the Q&A. We're building a no-code product that automates the front end of web applications using Figma design. He'd like to get feedback on what kind of customer acquisition channels would be effective for such products. And second question is, should I focus on US for initial customer acquisition, or should I go worldwide from the beginning? All right, so we got another no-code tool that I like this tagline, just import Figma. It's pretty clear in my mind what's going on here. I import a Figma mock, and you guys generate a either a landing page or it sounds like even if you're building like a full-on app using using this tool, you can do it. So feedback for the idea. I mean, this is really cool. I do feel like there have been several iterations of this. I vaguely remember, I forget who it was. I think it was someone from some college student from Cornell. This is like 4 or 5 years ago, where the idea of front-end code generator using design was kind of, there was a period of time where like people were thinking, oh, yeah, like if you can import a mock and then generate front-end code for it, that'd be like, I don't know if where that space has gone since then, if it's gotten if there's any, I don't actually, I can't think off the top of my head any company that was significant company that was built in this space, even though I think this idea has been around for a bit. So I do think it's still something, there's still something here. I'd be curious as to why there hasn't been anything yet. Maybe if I were to just comp to current technological progress, if I was looking at what OpenAI has done recently with their most recent product, maybe it's a technical issue where the code that's been generated hasn't been good enough, or it just wasn't quite there yet. And maybe we're still getting there.
Yeah, you have a fundamental issue where the most pleasant way to design is not going to be the most pleasant way for a browser to understand how to display. Because fundamentally, someone's going to have to do the math, especially with modern web design, on putting things into a box model, which designers don't like designing in. They like designing with absolute pixels. And so that something will need to do that translation. I don't know if this does it. If this does it, that's great. I actually think, I mean, it'd be nice to use GP, whatever, Codex, OpenAI, Magic. But I actually never thought you needed that if the only thing you were going to do was try to translate absolute positions to CSS, to basically a box model. Then you can probably build a very dedicated, I don't even know if you need machine learning for it. But I think people would assuredly love this. To your point though, Andrew, it's been a bit of a capstone project where I think everyone kind of stops short of it because what they say is, actually, you can't really import Figma, or you have to annotate everything, you have to tag everything, you have to use our special thing that's not exactly what designers want to use. So, and or you kind of have this fundamental issue where the frontier of web design keeps on moving so rapidly. It's actually fairly hard to translate some of the cutting edge Figma stuff, I think, into CSS. Just like consider trying to make the Stripe page in Figma into CSS with an algorithm. It's not easy. There's like a lot going on there. So, but it should be doable. Like it definitely should be doable. If we can create a car that drives like a person, you can definitely do this one small task. Now these guys are kind of doing the in-between. I don't think they're doing the, holy grail project, where I do think you have to annotate things. By the way, you could take back everything that I just said and you could say, well, that's really great if you're like going off on a 10-year research tangent, but if you find, 1,000 developers that really like this, people will learn. I mean, people learned how to use Photoshop and Figma. They'll certainly learn how to use Laska.
I like the name. I don't know what it means, but Laska is. It reminds me of laksa, like the noodle dish.
That's good. I like it. Yeah.
All right. And I guess the last question the second question that you had was go to market. It makes sense to focus on US for customers, or it makes sense to get all over the world. I actually would answer it this question a little bit differently. I don't know what Daniel would say here, but I would say go after the customers you feel like you can empathize with the most. If that's like customers in Japan, where you're based, where you know the ecosystem well, you should start there. Sure, it's nice if you can go to like the US market and sell there, but I feel like if you like where you understand the market, I think is the more important thing when you start, rather than going to somewhere that you think might be a more attractive segment. And I think this pain point is universal. It's not something that engineers in the US are going to feel differently from engineers in Japan. So
100%.
That's what I would say to that. So, all right. Moving on to to Kiter. I think we've taken a look at we took a look at this one previously. And the question is, yeah, I think we reviewed the landing page last time, and this time, Peter from Washington D.C. asks, "We have a demo link to our landing page as a means of showing the product and filtering out users who might sign up and leave. Should we have a more formal guided tutorial, or should the demo stand on its own as now? Thank you." So basically, I guess we should look at the demo. I will say getting dropped into this is a little jarring. I'm not super sure what I should be doing here. I clicked the next button a bunch of times and I saw some instructions, but after that, I'm a little lost.
I will say, having poked around at Kiter a couple of times, I think the guys have done actually a decent job of building out a lot of stuff. Like, it's clear there's a lot of stuff here. The challenge is it feels like, whoa, it feels like this person is very prolific. It feels like you added Y Combinator to your board. It feels like there's just a lot of internal concepts that are a bit difficult for a new user to understand. For example, I think the iconography is just, there's too many different things going on. You know, if you're trying to convey like company quality or how well things are going, I would just use stars, not these rocket ships. This is just me as a user. Andrew, you should chime in if you feel differently. I think the paper plane looks like it's just a unique icon. You don't see that often. Audio looks like you're actively like recording a session with someone. So anyway, you know, there's the whole, you can have an endless conversation about the degree of iconography design that you would want. Maybe icons are good or bad. And I'm not smart enough to, you know, have that whole debate. There's plenty of designers to have that, but there just feels like there's way too many unique shapes going on here. And as a result, it's a bit difficult. Anyway, I would have more buttons basically. And I would try to show this to more fresh eyes. This feels extremely well done to people that know how to use it, you know? Mm-hmm. That's my 2 cents. What do you think?
I feel similarly. I was a little lost on, you saw me clicking through each of these things, these icons on the other side. I was a little confused about what each of them was. And also like the paper plane, the volume button, and then the rocket ships. There's a lot going on here. What I would do is to make this interface more easily understandable, in addition to maybe like rethinking if you want to use some icons versus others or use more buttons, is if you're going to do a demo, have a little bit more handholding for a user who's just kind of dropping in without much prior context, whether that's like a walkthrough where you focus on different parts and kind of explain what's going on, or have them do an action like add a new job to your CRM, something like that. That'd be great. Like if I were to redesign this, it'd be something along the lines of, I'd give the person like a sample job description. I'd have them paste it into a field and I have them add it to it, and that person will be able to see it being added and then manage the states after it's been added to the CRM. Something along those lines, something more interactive and more easily understood than the way that this demo is. So to answer your question, I think having a demo is fine, but I think as it is designed now, it's easy for an end user to get a little lost. So, yeah. All right. Moving on then to the next one. I think what we can do here is, so we look at a bunch of different projects here at Pioneer, even projects that aren't currently in the tournament. And I think we're going to take a look at some of those that we've seen around the web that we think are kind of interesting, and give some feedback to those pages as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first one, we have Trove. Shopwithtrove.com. So the way that we're going to do this is the same as the last few, which is just go look at the landing pages and give some feedback. So Trove, 5% rewards at your favorite stores and restaurants. Pay with your bank account and get rewarded for helping businesses save money on credit card fees. So this sounds to me like a reimagined loyalty program, almost.
How does this work? Are you getting the restaurant to sign up? Because 5% is a lot. I guess what does rewards mean? Is that the receipt or is that some other made up? Oh, thank you. Oh, it's 5% of the receipt? That's a lot.
I think the key here is the rewards angle, which is it's in the form of store credit. So that 5% back must be spent back at that store.
I see.
So if compared to say paying like a 3% credit card interchange where you don't see the benefits of that as the store, you'd rather pay 5% and have them be a repeat purchase.
So obviously the idea like conceptually makes sense, works. There's some loyalty modeling the store can do. Oh, back to Kiter. Andrew, what do you think would be like the first challenge a business like this would face?
Convenience. When I think about a consumer, so interestingly enough, I have talked to a few companies that in this space. There was a senior person out of PayPal who I think is working on a similar idea. And I think the issue that I thought about when talking to him was, if you're a consumer going into a restaurant or a shop, odds are that you're going to be wanting to pay whatever method is convenient to you, and most people are going to pay credit card because they get, let's say, 3% back. It's pretty clean, rather than this like 5% back on a feature credit, which is still nice. But if I have a card out and I'm ready to make the purchase, downloading an app, setting up my account, syncing that before making the purchase is a bit of a hassle. And the question is whether that extra 2 to 3% is going to make a difference for the consumer. The other thing that I think about, and this is a weird analogy, but bear with me here, is I don't know how many of you get Uber rewards for when you like get over a certain number of points of having done a certain number of rides or ordered over an amount of like Uber Eats or whatever. But you get the option of redeeming it in 3 ways. You get the option of redeeming 15% back on your next Uber Eats order or Uber ride, or you get the option of getting $5 Uber cash. And I know it's not an apples to apples comparison here, but it makes me wonder like how many people opt for the 15% up to $7 versus like the $5 cash. Or similarly, if you're going to ask for money back, would you want to redeem something in store credit or redeem it in cash? And I think that people might value the cash portion more, even though the monetary value of the purchase is worth more in the form of store credit. Not to say that this isn't a good idea. I still think that there are a lot of people that are going to view this, especially if they're a repeat customer. But I think what you're trying to capture here are people that might not otherwise make a repeat purchase and incentivizing them to do so. And I think that the convenience factor is going to play into this, where someone might just be more liable to just use their credit card. But yeah, I mean, free money though is a good way of growth. I'm sure there's a lot of people that I still think there's a population of people that are going to be very interested in this sort of thing. So
yeah, I think that makes sense.
All right. Yeah, it's a cool idea though. I think that something like this is going to happen at a certain point, which is why I think this is interesting. Like, I don't think that the credit card thing is going to be forever the best way of buying things. So I do think that ways that you can save consumer money or make the business more money.
I do think one interesting idea, and I don't know to the extent to which this, I don't know how to think about defensibility here, but I think you could probably create Trove with a credit card using issuing, Stripe issuing, you could programmatically probably stipulate a card that offered rewards only based on rebuying them at the same merchant and have a whole app interface behind it, to the extent to which you wanted to do that instead of going through bank. Now, you would have to pay interchange all the time, would be the downside, but yeah, it definitely seems like there should be more flexibility around this stuff.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving on to the next one, which is Ellis, banking for international students. Sound in 5 minutes, no social security required, and pretty easy to understand. This landing, I think, is solid. If I'm a student and I'm an international student, I know that this is for me, and I probably had issues signing up for a bank account, wanting credit history or a social or all sorts of stuff like that.
So much going on in the credit card world. Do we go to the top for a second?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Who's banking these people behind the scene?
Blue Ridge Bank.
And they'll let me open accounts without a social security number? That's cool.
I think the difference here is that it's not a credit product. So it's not necessarily if the bank is lending. If it's a debit product, then you're not really underwriting nearly as much. So which makes it safer to have a bank.
I thought like the whole KYC AML thing was you can't really move money around without knowing who and where. And so I thought you had to like go to Switzerland if you wanted to have a nameless account, but
it looks like you need a passport to sign up. So it's not like it's completely anonymous.
Got it. Seems cool. I mean, it's funny to think of at the end of the day, this is just a variant ultimately of kind of Y Combinator and Pioneer, meaning the idea is whether you consider immigrants from outside of Silicon Valley or outside of the country, a lot of great people end up starting out small, as international immigrants. And I think supporting them is great. One interesting question will be if this business can kind of grow with its customers and whether or not you just move off to Bank of America or Chase once you have a larger checking account. Because international students, probably don't have that much cash to begin with.
I would say, yeah, there's two things that come to mind if I were to comp this to like other similar fintech products is as you grow, it seems like the way that a lot of these businesses will want to monetize is loans and credit, right? And the question is of how like credit worthy the population you're going after is like a classic question for if you're going to be starting like a banking product. So having some visibility into that is probably going to be important. I'm guessing. Yeah, I don't have great, like when I think of international students, there's like a wide range that you can go after, but that's probably one thing that's going to be important as you grow and continue to further monetize these people. And the other thing is CAC. The classic thing with any of these sort of fintech products is CAC tends to get much larger as you grow because in the initial stages, the international students that need banking are going to be more straightforward to acquire. But as you kind of exhaust like the early adopters, how expensive it is to acquire the long tail of people that could potentially be signing up for this is also an important metric to keep in mind. So, all right, I think we have time for one or two more. So the next one, a lot of fintech stuff going on today that we found is HorizonTAPI.com from Egypt. It's an embed banking into your service. Build a new generation of financial services using the Open Banking API.
So interesting. Like aggressive correlation between emerging markets and fintech, I find. But anyway, that's an aside. That's cool. So is this basically like Stripe Treasury for? I think it's Stripe Treasury.
I think it is.
It's cool. I actually think the innovation behind a lot of these products is the back office. So if this actually works, it's like very clearly a great idea. I mean, the bear take on this, Andrew, curious to get your take, is that look, at the end of the day, the number of is that there's a consolidation. And this idea that every single app is going to have banking inside of it is overrated. And at the end of the day, like, I don't know, it's going to be, you know, maybe we'll go from having 10 banks to 100, but not 100,000. What do you think? I mean, do you kind of subscribe to that view, or do you really think like, I don't know, OpenTable's going to have a bank embedded into it, and Mr. Beast is going to have a banking app, and The Rock is going to have a banking app?
I think it's become a bit of a meme. Like you've been seeing this on Twitter for a while about like, you know, it's every startup raises their whatever after becoming a bank, or you either live long enough for something or live for, I forget. You know, there's a bunch of sayings that meme this idea. I don't think that you're gonna see everybody becoming a bank. I think there is going to be some element of consolidation where it becomes easier to not become a bank than it is to become one. So just to further flesh out the reasoning for this, the reason why a lot of these startups want to become banks is because the lifetime value of your customers increases dramatically if you become like a financial product for them. Being able to do loans, being able to get interest, all these sorts of things, or charge interchange, are all really great ways of monetizing a user base. Which is why even if you're like, you know, some sort of consumer like other product, you kind of want a bank for those reasons. So the reason why I don't think that you need to become a bank is I look at places like Uber and Lyft, and I think the easier route actually is to provide like a credit product and making that easy. If anything, I think there's a big business to be built there. There already is a big business being built here, making it easier for businesses to launch credit products instead of becoming a full-on banking service themselves. So when it comes to issuing the card, having an underwriter that you partner with, but building a bank, like a fully verticalized bank, I don't think is going to be the playbook for most of these businesses, just because it seems like a lot of extra legwork and a lot of overlap with what other businesses are already doing. So if anything, I think it becomes more of a credit thing than anything else. So
totally.
Anyway, we're out of time. That's been our hour. Hope you enjoyed the mix of reviewing Pioneer Tournament projects as well as other interesting things we found around the web. So, all right.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Rishi. Thank you, Jackson. To the rest of the team, I guess. Thank you, Sam. And I will see you guys soon, right? At some point.
Yeah, see you next time.
All right, next time.
All right.